everyone. It's been a long time, I feel, that we've colored together, and it's so beautiful out that I decided to get creative outside today. And happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. So today we're going to be doing Baby Yoda. And of course you can make it your own, but you can follow me step by step. I just have a few crayons. I have a Crayola 16 pack, but whatever you have is perfect. Markers, colored pencils, and like I said, make it your own. I also have a few sheets of computer paper, just a few to practice with, and of course one for my artwork. And I find that it's helpful to have my art or my whatever I'm working on like an angle instead of laying flat. So if you have like a book, I'd put my piece of paper on a book and then put another book on the other end, and I'll just prop up my little workstation. But whatever you have is perfect. So today, just have fun and enjoy just making a beautiful piece. So I'm just gonna turn the camera and show you my workspace, and then we'll get started. All right, so it might be rocky for a moment, but here, I'll take this off. Hold on. So nice to see you all. All right, so I have my crayons. I have a few that are broken, but that's totally fine. And I also have my paper here ready for me. And I have mine propped up so it's on an angle. And now I'm ready to get started. So we have our fingers are also great tools. I use it all the time when I am painting, drawing, whatever I'm creating, just kind of get the placement down and before I actually make the mark, and that kind of saves me from making mistakes. But what's great about art, that there are no mistakes, and usually wonderful things come from those mistakes, so just kind of let it happen. But it's always good to kind of plan a little. So today, our finger and our materials, whatever you're using, are crayons, colored pencils, markers. All right, let's get started. Just turn this. So nice out. All right, sorry if it's a little rocky. I will stop touching it in just 1 second. Let's see, where am I? All right, so I hope you're all having a wonderful morning. I had a pickup of some great Mother's Day crafts this morning, and it was nice to see people, of course, being safe and far away, but anywho. All right. Ooh. All right, I think that looks good. Perfect. Okay, so like I said, we have our medium, whatever we're using, our tools, our crayons, colored pencils, markers, whatever you have, and then we have our finger. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of map out or place on my paper where I'm going to have my little Yoda. You could have yours really small down the bottom. You could have him the whole page, fill up the whole page. Just kind of think about that. Also, I want to think about having enough room for his little ears. And yeah, so my first shape is going to be an oval. And my oval is going to be part of his head, but we will add a little bit more detail to his little face later, including his ears. So keep in mind how much space you want to have for those little ears. I'm going to use a light green, and my head is kind of like in the middle of my paper here. So I'm just going to find the middle, and I'm going to make a nice little oval. Now, we've talked about the amount of pressure that we use on our crayons and in the past. And this time I'm going to use a very light pressure just to get started, and I'm going to make changes to that oval in just a little bit. So by using a light pressure, I'll have a light mark, which allows me to change things a little bit. So here it is, see it? And I'm just going to create, and that's okay if like you made your head a little too big and his ears will be kind of cut off the page. Remember, I always say, like, it kind of says that there's more beyond the edge of your paper, so that's totally fine. But I have my little oval here, and I'm going to start creating a little bit more of form on his face. So I know he has these like cute little cheeks, and I know he has this little like chin here. So I'm going to find the bottom of my oval here, and this is where I'm just going to kind of round it out. I can add a little bit more pressure once I use my finger, and I can say, okay, that's going to be his little chin, and that's just like a little smile. And then on either side of that little smile is going to be his little cheeks. And you can just leave it how it is, or you can go in and just kind of round out those little cheeks just on the bottom. And if you'd like, you can give his head, the top of his head, a little bit more of a peak. So it's like a little bit of like a frown or a curve right at the top there. So I think that looks pretty good. All right, so now his ears. I'm gonna practice with my finger, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use my crayon. I'm gonna stick with the light green, and I'm going to create kind of like a curved line for the top of his ear, right on the side of his head. Something like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, kind of keeping in mind the length. You can use your crayon, your tool, as a ruler too. So I want to kind of get the same length. So I'm just kind of finding that length, and then I'm going to do the same over here. All right. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the inside part of the top of the ear. So I have this kind of curve, and then it meets to that point. So I'm going to start right about here, and I'm going to curve, kind of following that same curve of the ear above, something like that. Same on this side. He's already cute. And now I'm going to do the bottom edge of his ear, which is just kind of like an angle going up. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space from the tip of his ear here. Let me just make sure you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, I think you can. Cool. All right, so I'm going to start right about here. And you can have like a slight curve up if you'd like. But I'm just going to kind of do an angle like that. Same thing on the other side. An angle like that. Cute. All right. So I'm going to make his eyes, which are ovals, and they're big. So I'm going to kind of picture them on there, and then I'm going to use the green crayon to draw them. So they're ovals, and they're kind of like, if I were to like go like this in the middle of his little face, like that's where the placement of his eyes are, because he does have like all these little wrinkles on his forehead. So I want to have enough room for that. So if I find like the middle of my oval and run my finger across, that's like going to be the great placement for my eyes. And I'm just going to draw them with my fingers first, keeping in mind the edge of your crayon. If it's not very sharp, kind of look and see what you're using, what part, what edge. It'll help with your mark making. All right, cool. So from here, I'm just gonna move down to his little outfit, and I'm gonna pick up brown. Same thing, we're gonna use nice light pressure so we can add and change things. But right underneath his ears is going to be like the side of the top part of his little coat. And they're just going to be slight curve at the top. So right underneath his ear, I'm going to do a curve. And you can do this nice and light. And a curve. And now I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. So it's this part here. Bring it down. Bring it down. I honestly think my crayons are kind of getting like warm and melted. The sun feels so good. All right, so that feels good. And now I'm going to go ahead and start adding this curve here, this bottom. So just like before, we have done those curves, those smiles. I'm going to do the same thing here, adding a nice curve and a nice curve. And they can touch. I'm just going to do it lightly. So curve and a curve. All right, So now one is overlapping the other. This one's overlapping that one. So I'm just going to create that by adding this little bit of a an edge here. So right like on the right side or this side of his chin, I'm going to start that by doing an angle down. And I'm going to come down a little bit. And I'm just going to extend past that bottom edge just a little bit. And it's okay to have like multiple lines because we're going to fill it in. So now I've kind of created the look of this one is on top of this side here. Now let's go ahead and add the top of my of the coat here. And all I'm going to do is just kind of lightly add a slight diagonal here, and then I added a slight curve here. Anyway, is perfect. I'm just kind of showing the top where it meets his little face, and I can fill in there a little bit of green to show like his like neck. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Maybe I can kind of just follow his little face curve. All right. Nice. All right. So from there, let's go ahead and extend our arms on both sides. And from right here, I'm just going to do an angle down and an angle down. All right, and now I'm going to do this part of his sleeve, which is just flat lines on an angle. All right, that feels good. Now that we kind of have this all set up, why don't we add the bottom part of his little coat here? So I'm going to add like right underneath his arms, these two little lines. And now with my finger, I'm just going to see how far down I want to go with my lines or the sides of his coat. Bring it down. And now I'm going to do the bottom edge. Again, it's going to have that slight little curve. He's so cute. And I'm going to do this part of his coat here, which I'm going to kind of find underneath his chin area. And all I'm going to do is draw a line and a line. Cool. So looking at his coat, I'm going to ask myself, do I need to extend and make like another little rectangle here for the cuff, or could I just make a line and that would create the cuff? Let's see. I think I'm going to do another little line. I'm just going to extend it a little bit. So just creating a little rectangle for his little cuff of his end of his sleeve. And I'm going to pick up the light green again, and I'm going to do his little hands. So I see his hand from the side, so it's kind of like a curve, and then I have his little thumb. So I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to do, and the thumb would be closer to his body. So I'm just going to do a curve, and I'm drawing this with my finger first, just to kind of get the size and the placement down. So curves. So it's kind of creating like a C inside of a C for this part of his hand, and then I'm going to do a little thumb curving the other way. And you could get as detailed as you like with his little hands, but I like it just like that. All right, now for the fun part, let's start adding some details and coloring in our little baby Yoda. So I am going to pick up my dark green, and I'm going to add some little wrinkles in his head. And I'm just going to show you a little close-up, just so, or bigger, just so you can see. Super simple. I have 1, 2, 3. You can do as many as you'd like. You can kind of, and all it is this. So they get bigger as they go. His little wrinkles on his forehead. So I'm going to go back to my page here. And again, being mindful of your edge of your crayon, I'm going to do a little guy and a little bit bigger and bigger. All right, cool. And that just kind of showed that they're wrinkles, so they're deep, so they're going to have a little bit more shadow, so they're darker. All right, cool. So I'm going to start filling in. I'm going to start with my light green. I can definitely add, actually I might even add a little bit of my light blue mixed on top. We've talked about adding layers. So I'm just going to show you real quick. If I'm adding a layer, I'm going to do a light to medium pressure. Of course you could do hard, but for this I'm going to do a light to medium. And I'll think about the way I'm using my stroke. So I have one color. I could do a dark green on top, but he's kind of like a funny little like dusty green color. So I'm going to just add very, very lightly, maybe a little bit of this light blue. And you could try this on your paper before you add it onto your piece. So this is blue-green. And I think that's like a good color for him. All right, so back to my page. And grabbing that light green. I'm just gonna focus on, maybe on his ears first. Thinking about the direction of my brush stroke. If I need to push down anywhere to add any definition, any kind of like outlines. If I don't wanna use like a black outline, I could totally use my color of my crayon of this color. And I'm going to leave a space for the pink, but I am going to add a little bit of a thicker line towards the bottom here, and I could give it a slight curve if I wanted to, keeping in a little space for that pink of his ear. Again, I can use that crayon and push down a little bit harder for anywhere I want to be definition or an outline. Alright, and I'm just going to continue. Going around his eyes. And you can play with the how you're making your mark. You could follow kind of like the curves of wherever you are. I'm going to do his little neck. And I'm going to go down to his little hands. Again, just keeping in mind the edge of my crayon. Alright, cool. I'm going to go jump to the eyes because I think that will just really start making him really look like him. And I can, start with the shape that I had, and I think I'm going to kind of go and make him a little bit bigger. And that's what's definitely great about using, your black, because will cover. So I'm just going to kind of lean back. I think I need to make this eye a little bit bigger. Again, being aware of my edge of my crayon. Sometimes you think you're making a mark one way and your crayon is saying, nah, we're gonna do it this way. All right. And I'm just gonna scrape out, I'm gonna use my finger now, and I'm just gonna scrape out a little bit of a highlight on his eyes. If you have a white crayon, you could just use a white crayon. And if you have like a pencil, you could use the eraser edge to kind of, or like the metal part of the eraser, and kind of just scrape it out a little bit. I'll show you some tricks on scraping another day, but if you wanted to have a little bit of a highlight in his eyes, I just like to scrape out. Or like I said, you could totally add a little bit of your white crayon. All right, I'm going to pick up my pink, and I'm going to add a little bit of pink to his cheeks, the lower part of his cheeks. He has some little rosy cheeks. All right, and now I'm going to start by filling in his ears. So this is like a medium pressure. And I could totally push harder right at the top of his pink part, or if I have another kind of like a pinky color, let's see what I got. I think I have a red violet. I think I'll try that. I'm just gonna add a little bit to the top here just to add a little bit of like shadow and depth to his ears. All right. And I'm going to add his little nose and his mouth. I just want to show you a little closer of how to make his nose, or how I'm going to make his nose. Of course, you can do it any way you like, but this is super simple. Again, just be really aware of the point of your crayon if you have a sharpener, or I totally sharpen mine. And his nose is just, his nostrils are an angle and an angle, and then like the top edge of his nose are just two curves. And I'm going to try to do them super small and really light on my paper, but I just want to kind of show you here. That's his little nose. In his mouth, you could do a smile, but I just did kind of like a little flat line for his smile or his mouth. So let me go back to this one, and I'm just going to really look at my crayon, and I'm going to get that little nose in. Let's see. An angle, and the top of his nose, and his mouth. He's cute. And I'm going to go ahead and just add like a little bit of definition or outline very lightly to his like chin area and his little cheeks. And you don't have to do this if you don't want, but I think my little guy needs a little outline definition. And let's see, I'm going to pick up my light green again, and I'm just going to, or maybe my dark green, I'm going to add just a slight like angle here, an angle here. It's kind of, I mean, I love coloring, I love crayons, I love colored pencils, because it has a lot of, you have a lot of control, and you can really work it and build it up and play with your mark. So just kind of enjoy that. Your mark is not your final mark, your first mark. So just keep going and seeing what you can change and add. I'm just going to kind of outline the top of his ear. I could use a dark green. I could use that blue. I could use my light green. I think I'm going to stick with my light green for the moment. And once I get my background down, I will see I can see what I want to add. All right, let's go down to our coat, and I'm going to play with a little bit of cross-hatching. So cross-hatching is making a mark. I'm going to go in one direction, and then I'm going to make like kind of like an X, or almost like a tic-tac-toe board right on top of it. And I can do that in all different directions. I can do it nice and close together. I can make big marks far apart. It just adds a little bit of texture, and it's really fun to do, and you can add some shadow with that as well. So I'm going to start by just lightly coloring in the top of his collar. And then I'm going to change my direction to down. So I kind of did like an angle for the top, and I'm going to go down for the rest. I'm doing a very light mark, and I can kind of clean up that bottom edge. And I can play with that cross hatching. So I'm going to add some lines going up, again being mindful of the edge of my crayon. I'm going to turn my paper because we can do that, and I'm going to add a few lines going this way, creating kind of like a tic-tac-toe or a little bit of texture. Maybe do the same thing over here. Maybe over here. All right, I think that looks great. I could add more to it, but I think I'm gonna wait and see what my background, after I add my background, if I need to. Now I'm gonna start introducing a little bit of a darker brown by just adding pressure to this part of his coat. And I'm just gonna kind of follow, you know, thinking his arms are long and out. So I'm just gonna add my mark going this way. And I can add any outline, maybe in black or pushing down really hard if I needed later. I'm going to skip over this part here. I'll do that when I do my cuffs. And over here. You could totally do cross-hatching all throughout. You could do circular motion, you could do all on an angle, you could do every which way. Whatever feels good and makes you happy. All right. Just kind of lean back and see if it looks how you'd like it. Maybe at the top here is a little bit darker where the top of his coat overlaps. All right, I think that's great. I'm going to do a very light coat on his little cuff here and here. The same thing in the middle. Maybe just darkening the edges here. Just showing. Nice. So I'm really noticing now that I'm going to need a little bit darker of an edge here. I might even use my black later, but I think that looks good for so far. I'm even extend his mouth out a little bit. All right, that's good to me. Also around his eyes, I noticed that he has like these little kind of like wrinkles or kind of like almost like eyelids. So I'm just going to push down a little bit harder, kind of giving a little bit of space, but almost outlining the eye a little bit. And if you wanted to try a light coat of like a bluey green, like super light, right on top of that green. I would see what it does on a scrap piece of paper on your test sheet first before going up onto your artwork. All right, that feels good. All right, so now these things, let's add those. And I'm going to start by using a light green, and I'm going to just use my finger first. So my placement is going to be a little bit different than here. I think I'm going to have to move them up a little bit, the lightsabers. So I'm going to create a line that goes on an angle. They're going to be crossing, right? So I'm really going to picture them. It's going to go through the back of his head, behind him, and I'm going to start with just the top or just with the line, okay? We'll decide if it's the top or bottom later, but I'm going to start right about here, and I'm just going to slowly kind of go, pretend you're going right through and up, and I'm going to stop right there. Now I'm going to say to myself, is that the top or the bottom of that? And I'm going to say that's the top, so I'm going to curve it going this way, and now I'm going to come back down. So here we go, traveling right parallel, right like train tracks. And we can add a little bit more of that glow later. It's so bright, so it's white in the middle, and then that color glows out from the sides. Now let's go ahead and just get the handle of this one down. So I'm going to pick up my black. I'm just going to turn my paper, and I'm going to start with like a line. So it's almost creating a T. And now I'm going to round those edges. And I'm going to make, it's almost like a rectangle with curved edges. And then the handle is like a long rectangle. Not rectangle, a long oval. All right, that looks good. And I'm going to do the other side, and then I can add a little bit more to my green, or if you wanted to, you could go right now and maybe go a little bit lighter, a little further out, just to show a little bit of glow. All right, and I'm going to use red for my other one. Let's see, my red. And I can kind of, if I have something near me that's long enough to measure out how big this one is to get the same measurement over there, or you could use your hand. I'm going to use my fingers like this, and I'm going to turn it and say, all right, it's going to start right about here. All right, so here we go. Turning on its side, just kind of seeing where I'm going. I want them to crisscross. Yours could be totally different. You could have, it would be kind of cool to see like a whole bunch of them, like all over your page, or just one. And I'm going to stop and I'm going to curve it. I'm going to say it's at the top or the bottom. I think that's the bottom, so I'm going to go back down this way this time. Running parallel, think of train tracks. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of thickness. And this one is behind my green one, so I'm going to skip over that green. And we'll add our little handle. Our rectangle with the rounded edges, or elongated, like a hot dog. Just like that. And then part you're going to hold. I'm just going to bring out that red just a little bit on the side, and I might even lift up on the pressure, so kind of lighter, just to really show that it's like glowing. Cool. All right, looking good. So I'm going to start working on my background. Now, I kind of made mine on all these kind of like angles coming out because it kind of reminded me of like space, right? So I thought that kind of works with this. So I am going to start by layering my colors. So I'm going to start with my blue. I think it's this blue. I'm just going to test this blue out. Yep, it's my dark blue or my true blue. And I'm going to start by just adding some angles going out. In here, I'm just going to start up and down. And I'm just going to, and it can have a little bit of space in between my line because I'm going to add layers. And I'm going to extend the same angle. It's going out. Just brushing, or not brushing, just pulling up. I'm going to turn my paper just so it's easier for me. And I'm going to think about that angle as well. So I started here, so I'm going to extend it, and I can kind of set myself up by just kind of planning it out. And then when I'm filling in, I really don't have to think about it because I kind of have that laid out for me. And I like to start at the bottom, push up or out. But if you have a different idea of how to go about it, try it out, let me know. And I'm just bringing it out. And you can bring it all the way to the edge. And if you have some paper underneath, you can go right off your paper or something protecting your tabletop. And just continuing. Just being mindful of the edge of your little ears and any part of your drawing that you already have down. I already think that looks pretty cool. All right, so let's continue on. I'm going to go from this angle. Just slow it down. I have a little bit of space here. And right off. And be mindful of his little hand, his little area between his thumb and his hand, or his fingers. So I'm just going like out all around him. You could add a different ground. You could add whatever you like, but I'm going to do this all the way around. You can always slow it down. Shake out your hand every once in a while. Alright, cool. I think that looks great. And my next color I'm going to do is purple. In this one, I'm not going to do it as intense or as heavy and as much pressure as my blue. If you like just the blue, you could leave the blue, but I'm going to introduce a little bit of purple, just following the same lines that I have. I'm just kind of doing it here and there, so just and I don't even have to bring it all the way to the edge because I'm going to have my black there and that will kind of cover it. But if you want to bring it all the way out, you sure can. And again, I'm just doing this a little bit lighter, still following those angles of those lines of blue. And I can kind of look and see if I want to go any heavier. Alright, and now the black. So I'm going to start actually from the edge and go in. So I'm just going to hold on to my paper. You could do off as well. Maybe I'll do a combo. Again, keeping with the same angles of the lines that you've already created with like your blue and your purple. Go right off here. That looks good. And turning my page. Could you maybe make a few other drawings of other characters? Go along with this. I always like kind of having, I always like the idea of having like multiple pieces that kind of all go together. And I also like changing up my artwork. I have a rotating gallery in my home and at the studio because I like, you know, however I'm feeling or seasons or just things I start to like and I like to change. So I could build that up. I could start getting darker at the edges. I could add whatever I'd like. I'm going to add a little bit of an outline here and there. Maybe on this part here where his arms meet his body. I could add maybe a little curve to his little cheeks. Maybe a little outline to his ear, just very lightly. Whatever I like. But I think he looks adorable. All right, so keep going if you want to add any more layers or add any more details, but I hope you had fun. It was fun to be outside with you all. Hi, Kate. Hi, Alicia. Hi, Dad. Hi, Derek. Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all. I hope you had fun coloring with me today, Maybe share this with someone who you know who loves Star Wars, even if they're an adult. It was fun to do. And I have about 7 more Mother's Day flower pot kits available, and I will be doing pickup again on Thursday at 10 a.m. If that doesn't work for you, of course, I can work something out. But those are $20, and you get 3 pots, paints, and a brush, seeds, and dirt, and little stake markers to write what the plant is, or a little note, or whatever you like. I also will be posting or sending out a link to a video for a little bit of instructional video on how to create your pots, but of course you can just make them your own. And just thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoy the sunshine, and I am looking forward to getting creative with you again soon. I think tomorrow we have a few events booked, but if you have any ideas, just let me know. I'd love to hear them, and thank you again. See y'all. Bye.